Well, good morning and welcome to House Party at Home. We hope you've had an amazing weekend and a great Sunday so far. I'm joined with my good friend and intern, Dan McCready. Dan, how are you? Is that another new haircut?
Uh, Chris, it's just I think it's a length shorter every week, so it is at this rate. So it could be the razor next week.
The Mac
Yeah, keeping good. I think I've found out that there's like a gradient in terms of I don't know what you do in lockdown. The first one is to shave your hair, and then you just go and raid IKEA for plants. So I don't really know what's next, but I'm ready for I guess normality. But it's good. I think we're starting to see that a wee bit, so it's good to get out and about a bit more. But yeah, keeping good.
looks like
How's you?
looks like you're a little mini rainforest right there in your room. I have yet to cut my hair. It's been like I don't know 3 months now. It's nearly three
Right.
months without a haircut. It's the longest I've probably went without a haircut in a long time. Hence why I'm wearing the hat. Um, so yeah, the struggle is real. Well,
You
here,
you got off the. Remember, you were going to cut your hair if we got 50 kids for Nua or for Move. You dodged a bullet there, so you did.
next year though, next year I'm believing. I'm believing. Well, here, first things first, big news. Premier League is back, and I thought we would start before we jump in with Chris and Dan's Premier League predictions for the weekend. So by the time you watch this, we're recording this on Thursday morning. So by the time you watch this, most of the games will have happened. So you'll know if we're right or wrong. So we're going to rattle through these really, really quick. Dan, Norwich, Southampton.
I have no idea who's better. I'm going to go Southampton 2, Norwich 1.
I'm going to say 2-1 Norwich. Tottenham, Man United. Big one.
3-1 Tottenham.
What?
Just
I'm gonna say
mind.
3-1 United. Pogba, Rashford, and Rashford. Watford v Leicester.
Leicester 1-0.
I can say Leicester 2-0. Brighton, Arsenal.
Arsenal 3-1, 3-2, 3-1, 3-1.
I'm going to say 2 each. You know, we've got some Arsenal fans at House Party, controversial, but I'm going to say 2 each. West Ham, Wolves.
1-1.
3-1 Wolves. Bournemouth, Crystal Palace.
Bournemouth 2-0.
I'm going to say 2-0 Palace. All right,
You're just taking my scores and turning them around.
We're moving Sunday. 3 more games. Newcastle, Sheffield United.
Newcastle 1-0.
1-0 Sheffield United. Aston Villa, Chelsea.
Chelsea 3-0.
I'm going to say Chelsea 4-2. I'm going to say it's a high scoring game.
That's a high scoring
Everton,
game.
Liverpool, Merseyside Derby.
I think Liverpool are going to come out all guns blazing. Like, I don't think they're going to have lost momentum at all. 2-0.
I'm just going to say this in faith. Everton 3-0. Not sure that'll happen, but I'm just going to say it in faith. So we'll see what happens. Well, here, Dan, let's jump into the important stuff. If you aren't interested in football, I'm sorry for the last 60 seconds or so, but we'll jump into our wilderness part 3. Dan, where have we been and where are we going?
Yeah, so we're still at the wilderness series, and I guess the point of this is really that we as individuals, as House Party, and somewhat the world are in a bit of a wilderness in terms of social distancing and isolation, and we have had, I guess, normality took away from us. We're starting to see that back a wee bit more, but for a lot of us, we haven't been at school. Our commitments and the structure of our day looks completely different. So there is somewhat of a wilderness that we have been living in and walking through. And so we want to look over different characters and different people who are mentioned in the Bible, and their wilderness experience and what we can learn off their wilderness experience. Also, that when we come out the other side of this, that we kind of took as much from it as possible. When we step into situations and circumstances like this, there's always learning to be had. So we would love just to take as much learning from it as we can. And what a better time to look at a wilderness series than when we're in the middle of it, you know, rather than looking at this in 2 years' time when we're not in this type of wilderness series. So last week Sophie and I had looked at the 10 lepers and how I guess the social structures of those days sort of caused the lepers to be in the wilderness, and actually how Jesus comes and reinstates them as members of the community, and how in the 21st century that there are things that society will say to us that you're not a valuable member of this community, and yet Jesus wants to come and reinstate us. And Sophie had spoke around bullying, and we spoke around mental health and learning disability, and how that can, as a community, either consciously or unconsciously, I guess, segregate us or whatever. Even just those feelings within ourselves, how Jesus comes to reinstate those. So this week we're going to look at Jesus and his temptations in the wilderness, and then again try and what can we learn from that in terms of what are our temptations in the wilderness. So Chris, I'll recap this for us. I'll read it out and recap it for us. So if there's at any point where the screen seems to pause and then come back, I've probably just made a mistake and we've edited it out. So this is one of the wonderful things about this. I can't just cut and paste in the middle of reading it out live, but we have this. So it's Matthew 4, and then we're reading 1 to 11. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came and said to him, "If you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you. And it is also written, on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." And again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And Satan said to him, "All of these I will give you, if you fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Be gone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve." Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and were ministering to him. Chris, so I guess a bit of a recap and jump in, but basically Jesus has been baptized. He's about to start his public ministry, and temptation. He goes out in the wilderness to fast and to be with Jesus, or to be with his Father before this ministry starts. And Satan comes and temptation starts, and a lot of it is just very verbal. You know, it's almost your word be my word, you know, and it's a sort of like battle of the words and what those words represent, you know. But the first thing that's tempted in, but if you want to shoot off on the temptations, but that it's very verbal, you know.
Yeah, I think the first thing is that, like, as soon as we started thinking about a wilderness series, and I think if you were to sit down and think about a wilderness series, probably the first story that would come to mind would be Jesus in the wilderness, perhaps one of the most famous stories of the wilderness in the Bible. And it's quite explicit that he's literally removed himself. He's went away and he's in the wilderness. And when you read over the first three temptations, they can seem pretty strange as soon as you read them off. But I think if you start to dive into the culture that they were living in, or if we even make a bit of an adaptation and be like, well, if this was today in 2020, what would these look like? And so like the first one is bread, turn these stones into bread. And Jesus responds, man cannot live on bread alone. And I mean, I wish we could live on bread alone. I love bread. If I could eat one meal for the rest of my life, it probably would be bread, carbs, and more carbs. But really what the temptation is there is fleshly desires and indulgence, to give into the immediate desires that we have around that, to push aside discipline, to push aside restraint, and to really just give in to whatever that looks like. And I think that takes a whole other different form of what it can be, whether that's physical or whether that's even a mental thing, but I think there's all different ways that we can probably relate to a lack of discipline, or just giving into indulgence, giving into immediate desires. And the next one is throw yourself off the temple, and angels will be sent to come and rescue you. And that might seem also like pretty strange, but I guess if you framed that in today's setting, if we had someone like about to throw themselves off a temple and the angels came and we all had our smartphones out recording it and documenting it, I'm pretty sure a video of someone jumping off a building and angels rescuing, I'm fairly confident that would go viral. That would probably beat most TikToks nowadays, and it would probably make headline news. And really that's something around fame and something around like pride of life, I guess. It's some kind of huge flex, and we probably live in a culture right now, particularly with social media, where it's all about how you're perceived, all about how people are reading between the lines, and it's almost easy to do that, to curate that and to build that on social media and to do certain things that generate an audience. And that really was that. And then the last one is I feel like it's a last ditch attempt. The devil's probably pretty aware right now that he's fighting a losing battle, and he says, well bow down and worship me and I'll give you all the kingdoms, I'll give you everything. And I guess there's two things that we've also discussed around this one that I find is particularly interesting. It's kind of like a lust of your eyes. Anything your eyes can see, you can have. There's also a little bit of a fast track of just do this one thing and you'll get everything. And I think there's a lot of things in life that unfortunately there's just no shortcut with. There's no fast track. There's no short way around. It's committing to the long haul, it's committing to discipline, it's committing to being good into that, and where we really arrive at some of the places that we want to be and get to, whether that be character development, whether that even be just even around your what you want to do with your life and your career. There's just no real shortcut around it. And so I guess there are the three temptations that are listed in the wilderness. And although our young people and ourselves as well, we're not being placed in a situation where we're being asked to turn stones into bread or jump off buildings or bow down and worship, but there definitely are temptations that I feel that we face in the wilderness that we find ourselves in today. And I think there are very specific temptations that young people face in this wilderness that they're facing today. And I think just to rhyme off a few and how they kind of fit in, I think one of the things that we can do and we can kind of give into is distancing ourselves and secluding ourselves, whether that be from our family, whether that be from our friends. It's kind of putting distance away from that, whether that be disappearing with your Xbox for hours upon hours and cutting off the rest of society. That's, I think, a real temptation, and to seclude ourselves from community, to seclude ourselves from actual relationship and meaningful conversations. And then I think also just a big one, and maybe it's a teenager thing. I know it's to be a teenager, it's not that long ago, but kind of, I guess, laziness and procrastination of just not exercising, not finding a routine to your day, or knowing when to eat, when to sleep, all that kind of stuff. Which
I'd love to be able to say that was just a teenage thing, but
yeah, I know, me too. Me too. Still working on the sleep pattern of 20 27. But I guess when you start to have that conversation, like I can remember my parents having that conversation with me about routine, like it's the last thing you want to hear, but really it's like they have totally the best intentions of like, if you want your day to be maximized, your rest to be maximized, you're going to be feeling better, feeling more yourself, and getting the most out of today, then really routine is a really helpful way to find that. And so I guess they're just some of the things I can probably more observe from a distance of like, here's things that I really think could be a big temptation, and really they kind of are hinged around like the bread thing of like indulgence and just giving into whatever it is in front of you, as opposed to really looking at it holistically, stepping back and acknowledging that we're in a wilderness, acknowledging that even though it's difficult, there's opportunity here for us to build rhythm, to build, it's all stuff that we've been chatting about, to build really good habits, to build really good rhythms and really good patterns in our lives. And there's unfortunately, as we chatted about in this last bit, which I think you'll touch on, there's no fast track to that. Like you don't just wake up the next day and suddenly like you have this built-in rhythm of reading your Bible every day. Like oftentimes it looks like waking up, finding a time and doing this like 20, 30, 40 days before it becomes second nature. You know, it takes a little bit of time for this to become a habit and to really get into it. And if you talk to anyone who this has become a habit, I mean, us included, Dan, it's a habit that you will not regret. It is one of the greatest things of going to God's word, but there's just no fast track to these sort of things. Yep. And so I find it really, really interesting when we look at the things that Jesus faced and how like, at face value, it can be like, well, we're not facing those things. But when we really look at it from a cultural point of view, and even where we find ourselves today, I think we can really relate to Jesus' wilderness experience that he faced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think more so shooting off that the last temptation. I think it's interesting that in the last one, Jesus just like, be gone, Satan. You know, like sort of had enough of this now. Like it's almost like I've entertained you long enough. You know, like I'm just annoyed at you now, and it's almost like I, as a brother, can annoy my siblings really, really well. And there'll be times like Sam will just entertain it, my brother will just entertain it, but I get to the point where I'm just like, can you get out of my room now? You know, like, and it's sort of that way. But I think for us to look at that as an example of like, just tell Satan to go. Like when you have temptation, like don't entertain it. Like just have it be gone, you know. And even just to take those words and just quote those words, you know, like we see Jesus quoting words to Satan, like be gone, Satan, you know, like when those temptations come. But in the last one, what we see is Satan saying to God, like, look at all these kingdoms, you know, and what was it that Jesus came to earth for? What's the game plan in the long term? It's to get his people back into one kingdom, you know, to have like life in heaven, you know, to bring us back to what Eden looked like, and very sort of Garden City-esque here, but like to get us all to the one point that looked similar to what Eden looked like, to what it was all meant to be like. And so what does that involve? That involves in Satan's head, it includes getting all the kingdoms back together under Jesus' rule. I think Jesus looks at it a wee bit differently, and just as we were looking at it, Satan's very much like, here's the kingdoms, do you want them? And I think Jesus isn't really looking for the kingdoms, he's just looking for the people, you know. Like it's very interesting that Satan doesn't bring Jesus up to the pinnacle and show him people, because he's not, like, Satan's not really interested in the person, you know, whereas Jesus is. Side note, but the big thing of it was, here's your fast track, you know, like, see, rather than having to spend another, you know, 3 years here on the earth, see, having to go through the torture and go through the pain and go through the death, like, bow down to me now and I'll give it to you. And at that point, Jesus has the choice to make of like, that I want the quick fix and I want the easy path and the shorter path. Like, that I want what I want right now, that like immediate gratification, or am I going to choose to do it longer and do it harder, but know that I'm doing it right? And he balances that up and he's like, I'll do it right all day long, you know. And so like I even like think in terms of like the dreams that we hold and the passions that we hold, like there's a right way to exercise those. And very often we want just to jump to, okay, I'm at the goal now, and we don't want to do our like training program. We don't want to have to apprentice, you know, we don't want to have to learn, but actually there's reason for that. And actually that way, although longer and although harder, it's right, you know. So I think that's like the very interesting point of like in our culture right now, and it's not even young people, it's just people in general want the immediate gratification, you know. And we've lost the art of apprenticing for X, Y, or Z. And that's where Jesus in this one is really like, no, that's right to do that.
And I think like this ties in perfectly where we kind of want to land and kind of what we want to push around people into our engage section. But I think really the most important thing around this, kind of how to make the most of our wilderness experience, how to make the most of what we're going through. And I think a lot of our young people probably have the best intentions to do that, and maybe it hasn't worked. And maybe they're left the question, well, this just doesn't work for me. And I think what I would love to land with is the difference between trying and training. And so if I had a 200 kilogram barbell and I tried to back squat it every day, that was my thing. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to try every day. I could try for the next 4 years of my life, every morning getting under that barbell and trying to squat it. I'm never going to do it. Like, it's just not going to work ever. But if I train instead of try to do it, training might look like having an empty barbell, starting on a Monday and getting 10 reps in. Then the following Monday, putting 10 kg, 20 kg, 30 kg, eventually working up. And if I take the time and I train daily, I train and put in the time, eventually I can train up to do that goal of lifting that 200 kilogram barbell. And so I think there's a difference of like, people want to, or young people might want to be like, I just want to pray more. And so like, I'm just going to set aside these 2 hours this Monday morning, I'm just going to pray. I'm not sure how that's going to work for you, you know, like, or I want to read more. I'm just going to read like a full, like 20 chapters of the Bible every day. I mean, if your discipline's good, that might work for you, you know, but the chances are that's jumping in, trying to get under 200 kilograms and being crushed by the weight of it. And if you try it every day, chances are you're gonna fail. And so I think my thing around how do we make the most of this, particularly in terms of our walk with Jesus, which I feel like is what we're really trying to talk about here. How do we make it training and not trying? How do we make it small, obtainable goals that are daily, that we can build on day in, day out, that we can eventually build up to where we want to be? And there's a lot of resources to be made available for doing that. We have our devotionals that we have. We also like our podcast that we have. But how do we really make those small things daily, make it more about training than trying? And how do we build in that rhythm that works for us daily? And I think we'll unpack that more in our engage section, but that's really where I would love to leave our young people with, of how do we really use this wilderness experience to train, not just try.
And I think like I'm through there in terms of like, I just, especially with like running, for example, like I just want to be like where I want to be, you know. But there's a verse in the Bible that says, don't despise the day of small beginnings. And it's like, it's that, you know, it's okay, you want to be here, don't despise having to start here, you know. Just to run off what you were saying there, Chris, but yeah, start small, start strong, and that's how it works.
Well, amazing. Dan, thanks for joining me. Our engage section is going to pop up on the screen here. We love you guys spend some time about that, put it into practice this week. We know that if you do, you'll really benefit from it. And let's hope. I wonder who's got the most amount of predictions right. It probably means who's the most prophetic between us, Dan. Maybe that's but Dan, thanks for joining us. And House Party, we'll catch you again soon on the next one. Have a great week. See you soon.
Thanks, guys. Love you. Bye.